In the last episode, we talked about research. This time, I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to have a good look at the ear. It doesn't sit on a flat surface. The high spots on the skull are the two blue spots. They're the widest there. And the red spot is where it's already getting narrow. I've outlined the highest ridges in blue so that when you're carving, you leave those and carve around them to get the right depth. Notice how nothing lines up 90 degrees or flat. Everything is on an angle. At the base of the skull is curving in already, and the ear is attached low on the skull, on the cranium. So it's curling in at the bottom, and you can see those angles illustrated there. Have a good look around. Now, as we're looking down from the top, you can see those shapes emerge again. And see, again, it's all angled. And there are the ridge lines from another viewpoint. Notice the angles again. Look at it from a lot of different angles, both when you're studying it and when you're carving it too. You're not going to notice things unless you notice them from the angle that you observe them from. You'll find that there are far few guesses you're making as you're carving. There, we just look at it from another angle again. There are the high spots, the ridge lines. I hope that this gives you a better perspective. Now, we're going to think of it from another point of view. There's a few different ways to try and understand the depths that are involved. You can look at it also like two bowls shoved into the side of your head. It's about the right shape. There you can see from the back, the rim is the outer edge of the ear. It just gives you a feel for a basic structure. Now, think of those high ridges as a roller coaster ride. Imagine, see, there you really understand that there's nothing flat about it. It really does move up and down. And as you see the cars go around, you really get a feel for how things move in and out. Now, we can look at that from another perspective. Same thing. We're just going to see it as it shifts a little bit. And now we'll get a feel for the depth from this angle. And now we'll go right down into the ear. And somehow it's a little easier to understand than when you're looking at a real ear, I find sometimes. You know, it's clearer and, oh yeah, that would feel funny, wouldn't it? Well, that's enough theory. Let's get carving on the wood now. Before we get started, let me just put you back to the perspective of a full head. The ear is positioned about between the eyebrow and the bottom of the nose when you're looking from the front. And from the side view, it starts halfway from the nose to the back of the skull. Now, I've given a general outline. Again, use a pencil or pen or whatever as much as you want. I generally don't use it that much, but those are the rough guidelines before we get started. Now, again, you can do all this with the chisel, but I find it just goes really fast with the chainsaw. Again, you know, if you have a chainsaw, you want to follow all the safety procedures, but it's a very effective rough-out tool. What I've done here, you can see, is just give the general outline of the ear. At that point, you've removed a lot of wood, and you've got that roughed-out form just sitting there. Now I'm working on the back of the ear. And basically what I'm trying to do at this point is establish where the ear meets the rest of the head. Now just getting some of those little forms started. And that's not too bad for a rough out. Now we'll get the chisels out. They're just smoothing things off and finding those ridges again. You can start to see where some of those ridges are proud and where the wood has to be removed around them. They're smoothing off the outer ear and working the back. Again, that bowl shape. You know, you get the rim and there's a bowl behind that and right down to the point where it meets the skull. And maybe you can tell a little bit now too. The high spots just in front of the ear on the skull is a high spot and just above the ear. And so you can see even on the roughed out block that it's starting to get narrower near the bottom of the ear and behind the ear. Now, just smoothing off, working my way in a little bit. And you can start to see some of those ridges emerge there. And that ridge in there is a little tricky because it's going down inside the ear. And you're going to have to be careful just to follow it. There, cleaning out around the outside shape where the ear meets the rest of the head. Just define that a little more. And there, parting between those two areas. You can see following that shape all the way down into the inner ear. There's a bit of a split there. The one shape breaks off into two. And now just working some of those shapes down in a little more. Getting some of the forms a little clearer. They're following around. Now this is going to be just fairly rough. I'm not going to refine it a whole lot. We just want to get the general forms and the approach to get the shapes. Again, if you don't get those rough shapes right, no amount of detail is going to make it. And you'll find that the detail is a lot easier to establish once those rough forms are there. They're just getting down inside a little bit. You don't have to get real far down inside the ear. You're just hinting at it where the inner ear really goes in. They're just a bit of a look around. There's the back of the ear. And that's pretty rough, but most of the forms are there. And there it is, just a little better. I want to mention there's a lot of good wood carving videos out there. I don't know all people, but I do know Fred Zavadil, very good wood carver. Dylan Goodson, Janet Cordell, the Wood Carvers Academy. They have a number of carvers there. Thanks for watching, and I hope that helps.